personal life in terms of relationships?
I've lost some family over it. I've lost some friends over it. The ones in the friends category that disappeared when all this happened, that it's sad and it's painful. It's also good information.
Right.
In life, somebody told me years ago, when you get to the end of your life, you'll be able to count your true friends on one hand.
Right on.
And going through this J6 experience reiterated that. And it also reiterates how precious the ones on that one hand are. So my true friends, more valuable than ever. All of the casual acquaintances, well, good to know.
Right.
And then I'm very, very fortunate to have married the right girl. I know Jan Sixers. I know one of my Jan Sixer friends that I've talked to, on the phone quite a bit. He lost his wife on this, and he's still grieving it terribly. I talked to I was on Diamond and Silk with another Jan Sixer who lost her husband over it. Her husband actually was attached to the FBI, and they told him, you either have to choose between staying married or keeping your career. He chose his career over his wife.
Right.
And I told her, I was like, that's good information. Better you found out this way than some other way.
Right.
I don't particularly call a guy like that a man. That's not what men do.
Right.
But no, I married the right girl. My kids, I think it's great. Yeah,
Right
it's
on.
great. Dad's going to prison. Yeah, Dad's back. Yeah, your kids are pretty resilient.
Right.
And
get
but no,
street
it's
cred.
and I will tell you, my church stuck by me. I'm a devout Christian. I'm an ordained deacon.
All right.
I was the chairman of the diaconate at my church. I was the chairman of the diaconate before I was arrested. I was chairman of the diaconate the entire time, including prison and home confinement. And I was chairman of the diaconate when I was pardoned, and I'm still chairman of the diaconate. They have stuck by me. My church has stuck by me unbelievably well. But we are we're what's called a Reformed church, Reformed Presbyterian church, where the word Reformed harkens to the 1500s Reformation. Martin Luther, John Calvin, John Knox, the guy, the Puritans that founded our country.
Right.
And they had a strong faith, and my church teaches that and preaches that. And now they stuck by me. They stuck by me. I mean, I think maybe one or two people in my church raised an eyebrow, and everybody else was like, nope, he's our deacon. He's our chairman. We see what's going on here. We ain't buying it. And they stuck by me. So
right on. That's good. If you had a time machine, would you do it again?
Okay. If I had a time machine, it wouldn't change my principles. It wouldn't change why I was there. It wouldn't change the fact that, as a matter of principle, I was there to protest, and I came to protest, and I protested.
Right.
It would not change the fact that I was also quite curious as to what was going on in that building and wanted to see it. So none of that would change. But if you're about to stick your finger in the socket and get shocked again, you don't do it. I mean, I would probably say, like, without, and I don't want to make out like I did nothing wrong that day. I did something wrong. I knew when I stepped across that threshold that I was at least committing a trespass. I knew it. I'm a lawyer. I wasn't stupid. Here's a threshold. Here's a building. It's freaking U.S. Capitol.
Right.
People are walking through the door. That don't be it. People are jumping off a cliff. I wouldn't jump off a cliff. People are walking through the door. I don't have to walk through the door. But I was like, I am curious. I want to see what's going on inside. Yeah. I came to protest. I honestly thought I could go in there and take a quick look around and leave under the circumstances,
Right.
but obviously that didn't work out very well. Um, so, would I commit that petty trespass again, knowing that it would cost me 21 days in prison, 90 days home confinement at all? Yeah, probably not.
Right on. I get
Probably,
it.
probably not.
I hear you. Do you think there's anything that I didn't ask that you would want to get out there or share? Maybe that I
Oh,
forgot to ask or missed?
I tell you, there's so much going on now that's so interesting. I
Yeah.
mean, you've got, the FBI has now admitted that there were confidential human sources in the crowd. They started out with the number 26 and said, okay, 4 of them actually entered the Capitol and 13 of them actually entered restricted areas. Now they've started to bump that number up. And of course they would, because if you had 26 confidential human sources in the crowd, you had at least that many agents.
Right.
Every one of them was there with a handler.
Yeah.
Confidential human sources don't act independently. And then you got Clay Higgins' investigation putting the number of assets in the crowd on January 6th at over 200. And I just saw an article a couple of days ago putting the number over 400. Some other interesting things. Now that we have totals, and these are the totals off of NPR, the database I mentioned. It says, if I can recite it from memory, 1,575 people are arrested. Of that 1,575, 418 were alleged to have committed any kind of violence. Any kind of violence. I mean, the severe stuff down to simply that policeman grabbed my scarf and I yanked it back away from him. That person was getting charged with, you know who I'm talking about, the grandma that yanked her scarf back and they charged her with assault on a federal officer. So 418 out of 1,575 comes to 27%. And I call it the 27% insurrection. And I think, these are just numbers. I mean, I don't care if you're liberal or conservative, or if you love Trump or if you hate Trump. 27% does not make an insurrection.
Right.
27% of the people are not violent. Besides that, 1,008 people were sent to prison for a median sentence of 6 months. The median sentence of this roughly 1,000 people sent to prison was 6 months. And yet, if you take the 418 violent people compared to the 1,008 people that went to prison, the violent people aren't even half of the people that went to prison.
Right.
It's like 41% of the people that went to prison. These numbers tell their own story. I mean, I'm very interested. Everybody at DOJ has been fired. My prosecutor was fired. Her boss was fired. The director of the DOJ, Merrick Garland, got pushed out. The assistant director was fired like on January 21st, I think. Right. I think pretty much everybody in the chain of command, from my prosecutor all the way to Garland, has been fired. Okay. And it's not because they did everything right. Okay. Right. I mean, it's not because they were playing by the rules. Okay. And then you look over in the FBI. I don't know about my particular FBI agent yet. I've heard through the grapevine that he may have a problem. I didn't really get much of an indication from him one way or another. I think he seemed pretty objective most of the time. But the FBI is in serious trouble. I mean, thousands of termination letters are going out.
Right.
These kinds of things don't happen for no reason. And then here's another statistic that it's just a hard fact that I think anybody can wrap their head around and start to see that there's really a deep alternative side to the insurrection narrative. And that is that of 13,000 special agents, 5,000 were dedicated to January 6th. Okay. That's a big chunk of people. Yeah. Okay. And that 5,000 agents, these are agents now, 13,000 right. agents, 5,000 assigned to January 6th. 5,000 agents affected 1,000 575 arrests in a period of 4 years. That's each agent of the 5,000. If you divvy it up evenly, each agent got 1/3 of one arrest. So, beside, yeah, it's like, what's going on there? I mean,
Right.
Elon. You want to look at some government
Yeah.
inefficiency? Look at the guys that came after us. They're
Yeah, no kidding.
averaging 1/3 arrest apiece over a 4-year period.
Jeez.
What is that? And the people that insist. I guess there's one other thing I would say that I run into. I do a lot of spaces with some
Right
of
on.
my J6 friends, and I hear the liberals will come on, the sedition hunters guys will come on, the hard left wokies will come on, and and Trump lied. He lied to you, and you stupid people believed his lies. Okay, let's just assume for a second that Trump just lied through his teeth. Let's just assume there's absolutely no reason to have any doubts about the 2020 election, which everybody virtually does, but let's pretend like we don't. Okay. The bottom line is you don't have to be correct to enjoy the protections of the First Amendment when you're engaged in political protest. There's this sort of narrative out there like, well, yeah, the First Amendment and everything, but they were wrong. And it doesn't matter. We could have been up there protesting that Venus and Pluto weren't fair to Michael Jackson's monkeys. It doesn't matter. We could protest whatever we want to protest. You don't have to be right. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to make sense. You can protest. Jan 6 protesters knew exactly what we were protesting. We knew exactly why we were there. We had an opinion that the election was rigged, and we wanted to be heard on that. We wanted to bring those grievances to the government in a First Amendment way. Okay, granted, I won't deny that some riots occurred. I think it was a protest with significant pockets of rioting. But to frame that whole thing, particularly with the statistics I just gave you, to frame that whole thing as some sort of massive insurrection is just absurd.
Right.
I mean, it's just absurd. I mean, for 418 people out of 1575 arrested does not an insurrection make. And then once again, you really want to get into the weeds, start looking at the 418 that were arrested. I tripped and fell. I got arrested for assault on a federal officer. Some guy grabbed me. I yanked my arm away from him. I got arrested for AFO. You see a ton of stories like that in there too. So, and then, like I say, don't even get me started on the abuses of due process. I mean, they completely ignored the Brady rule. In my case, I was trying to get stuff, just like, no, you can't have it. We know there were 14,000 hours of video, and of 1,575 J6ers charged, not one of us had access to it. Not one of us. Okay. That is a direct violation of Brady. They had the tapes. They picked the tapes they liked. They played those. All that fighting in the tunnel, they played that at my sentencing as though I had something to do with it. And I'm just sitting there going like, what? How is this even relevant? I didn't even see this. And then subsequent to that, I found out that it occurred after I had already left. But they used that narrative. They used the media narrative. No changes of venue. They gave no Jan 6er got a change of venue. We all had to be tried, in DC or attached to DC, via Zoom or maybe in another courtroom, but it was all DC controlled. They would not grant they did not grant one change of venue. I've heard people say, well, changes of venue are very rare. Okay. Yeah. But they're not 0 in 1575 rare.
Right.
Okay. They're not even that rare, truth be told. But,